I told her everything, looking at myself as being part of the organizer of this show. Also, remember when the lady was talking about me if I came on stage, when the guy said the shoes are too big for me. You know, all those things are like wrap up to make me relative to this show. So I feel as if I'm really part of the show. So I was trying to answer her question why the thing about art was not included here. So I first corrected her that what you mean by art is that you're excluding books, theater arts, movies, fashion, architecture from what art is. All these bodies, they're like the creative thing because the history of art, of visual art, cannot really be history of art as in architecture and design. like priests, who had to design those clothes based on rudiments of the society to make it work. So that's that. But in today, you have intellectual property, you have copyright, and you have that. But even those copyright and intellectual property are still touted around by the communities that those things come from. So when you're looking at Benin brass, which now they wanted to return it, the Oba of Benin was hesitant that it shouldn't go to the National Museum, it should come to the court that they were made for. So art in our past was for courts, which made the artists not so intentional in showing who they are, because it was for the society. And they were covered because it was closely knit, and those people knew who were the artists were. So even when you are picking artists from another generation that had to do that, they will go to House A. They say, oh, House A, they were good in making these effigies for fertility. So the first son should be this one and all that. So I hope I answered your question. All right, thank you.
I had another hand. Where was that? Has your question been answered? Okay, you still have a question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for the very, very erudite lecture. I appreciate the range, and you talked about a number of important things. But I am particularly interested in where you talked about the fluidity of art. You being trained to write books, and you also being a poet because you write poems for your own personal consumption, and then you also being exposed to many art spaces where this fluidity of art has come to play. Like you mentioned the Vienna architecture, the Vienna Biennale, or what we call the Vienna Architectura. So recently I wrote a profile piece about next year's headliner of that event, Professor Leslie Loco. So this is how I got to know about the Vienna Architectura. So now I am interested in you throwing more light on the relationship between the Vienna Architectura, which is basically an architectural exhibition, and how architecture and art are correlated, so that we can learn a bit more about how art and architecture are related. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you're talking about Venice architecture. You're not just talking about the art part of it. So back to what I said, that art is an embodiment of everything. So I don't want to sit down here and abuse the university system in Nigeria, but in other countries that art is more like the GDP, it's commerce. People here, if you told your kid told you, or you told your parent that you were going to study art, they would just ask you, where's banking? Where's medicine? Where is this and all that? Because even our generation, they forgot that art was even everything in our society before the arrival of traders who also came as missionaries, which made you throw away the essence of what you had, because everything about creativity is an embodiment. When you live in a good house, you want to put a good house. You want to put a good art. Same in our native societies. When you had things working, you had certain houses that women put things in their barns, so you could tell a rich man with how many wives he married, and his barns and his yams were all a repertoire of his height in the society. So housing, the way you lived, the way you speak, whatever you did was the same thing. While our schools now decided to put visual arts place here, and then they put the fashion class maybe 20 miles away, then architecture will stay there. So you all think you're apart, but the creative is the creative. I told you that the most successful art shows ever were those art shows that reference books. And I was talking to my friend yesterday. I said, Chino Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart, which has been interpreted to nothing less than 50 languages all over the world. But have you ever heard of any major event that was titled Things Fall Apart? Even when they did poetry, famous poems, you all are poetry people here. There's a famous thing that goes like a broken china in the sun, which can be related to maybe Gabriel Okara or Okibo or whatever. But when you say like a broken china in the sun, it takes you back to Ibadan. And when I was having an overview of the books you put there, I saw one of the authors breaking Ibadan to 3 words, IBDA, and so I'm looking. I'm thinking if I wasn't into the literary world, I'd never know what that was, because it didn't have anything to do with the rusty roofs of Ibadan, which is the poetry of the broken china and the sun. And then I looked at the Cocoa House in graphic. Then I found out too that even if I knew all this, if my feet were always staying in some place, I wouldn't even know. But I had to be moving around, So I knew that was the Cocoa House. In my thinking, I didn't even look at it again, but I could relate it. Same with art. Art is relative. At a point when people painted pictures that look so real, they call it realism. But it got to a point that the camera was discovered and people could take picture of similitude. So it was still photography. It wasn't considered art. But at a point, you find out that you could tweak the photo, like what you call photoshopping today. You could compose. When you're composing, you get, imaginations, you get imaginary. You add things. You could be surreal. You could be real. You could be contemporary. You could be everything by using the camera. So it became art, even though there's no definition of art. But the first thing I would advise you as artists who are more into book, which is the greatest thing, because everything started in the leaflets. We're Christians basically here, but it's all about word. You read the Bible and everything. For each pastor that comes to preach to you, his understanding of history will change his approach and your understanding of Ephesians. Because if a pastor came and told you about Ephesus, and then he told you that Ephesus was a land at this time of the history of life, and this was where it was, and then maybe Damascus was part of Ephesus, or maybe Istanbul, which you now call, what's that? Istanbul, it was Constantinople. So the sense of, now I'm back to history now, which means I sound like a historian, but this history is relative to art, which I now take it to Bible, which is religion. So everything, even migration. So I'm talking about travel by using the example of the Bible. So it's all interrelated. So a living man is a complex society. A living man is a community. You see, you smell, tactile. Even if I close my eyes now, I'll go like this. I know that this chair has got some kind of fluff and everything. So never you ever constrain your art to, I'm a poet. I was talking to a young guy yesterday who thinks I'm an influence. So he told me he was writing poetry. And I know that he wants to make a lot of money from his work, which is okay. But how many people read poems? How many people buy books? We're in a book show, but you find out that the books are very removed from where we are. This is the book festival. I had to carry books that relate to books, because if I wrote whatever I came with, I wouldn't even. So all these books are references to what we're doing. But the books that we're showing are aloof. They are just disconnected. So as you walk in here, you see bags, you see tote bags and T-shirts about the show. But the major thing about the show, it's your book. So how do you get connected? By taking that book to another level, because we need books to make shows. We need books to design houses. We need books to preach. We need books as reference to everything we do. So when you start by removing what you're doing as a poet and a writer or a narrator or prose and all that from the generality. In any case, shooting forward, I told the young man, said, listen, I'll tell you what, you write poems, what you do today is that change all your poems to songs and try to sell them to Burna Boy, Davido, or any of those people. Because they're always looking for songs, and they're even stealing songs. So why don't you tweak your poems to serious songs and then get a patent for them? Back to what you're talking about, intellectual property and copyright. Because when you're going without anything, you always think that you're trying out something, you throw it there. But someone, when you have concepts, not everyone's got a concept. You take it for granted that because you could close your eye and write a book, everyone could do that. The people who want to sell books, they can't even write like you. All they needed was the aptitude to write their book, and they will sell it more. See, it's all context about life. Even when I was told to put my artwork here, I had to give Kate an excuse not to put my work there, because if I had to portray my work with all these experiences I've had, then I come to a show and then you have canvases put on the floor and then you mount another one on top of the other one. That means you're already disregarding this product. You are not supposed to be sold. So even if they are not supposed to be sold, because you don't have to sell all ideas, you can share ideas, even if you didn't want to sell them, but you have to keep the idea with a kind of sanctity that makes sense, because what is commonplace is commonplace. Even bad art is shown. I remember when I was a curator for Nigeria, and then we're showing art, so now we're vetoing and picking this one. Oh, this is fantastic, which is even difficult what to say, what makes an art piece fantastic. But then people in your schools would say that these are beautiful pictures, which is actually derogatory, that when a work is said to be beautiful, it's like a street thing. Okay, back to the point that trying to pick up the art, someone said, let's put this aside, they're not good enough. But someone said that bad art could be exhibited. That's why even counterfeit art, when it's caught by, in certain countries, they still show them, because by looking at the counterfeit, you'll be able to tell the real one. So back to you, Venice Biennale is one of the oldest biennales in the world, and it's total art. And I tell you, one of the most successful editions of Venice Biennale was actually done by a Nigerian curator, which you should be proud. And he wasn't a curator by birth. He was a poet. He studied poetry, okay, and literary studies, but he decided to be a curator. So he referenced a book, and then he had one of the most successful Venice Biennale in its 160-something years. And he's a Nigerian, and he was born in Calabar, the minority, that you're talking about. So just look at yourself as a totality of what you do, because you're creative. What you can paint is what you can paint. It's like your thumbprint. So when you have a thumbprint, which is your art, and you take it for granted, too bad. So the thumbprint has to do with a whole lot, because only you've got that. So now when you make your thumbprint a multifaceted property of poetry, books, art, architecture, what have you, it becomes a better thumbprint.
Put your hands together again for Mr. Bon Sefium. He has done excellently well on the topic. And right about now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to let us know that after this panel discussions, we'll be announcing the winners for the spoken word artistry, after which we will join the entire team to the exhibiting gallery for the exhibition. We have a number of artists, a number of exhibiting artists in the house that I'd like to bring up to this panel for a discussion on arts, on the culture and arts, representation of selves. Now we are talking about minority, we are talking about the minority arts. We've been talking about minority literature for the past 2 days. Today is for art. So we want to talk about this art in the minority climb. And I'll be introducing to the panel for a discourse on this topic. And this topic will be moderated by an exhibiting artist of high repute, herself, Queeneth Ibom. Please put your hands together as we invite Queeneth to the stage. A number of people will be joining us. One person is joining us online, and Yekan Udofia will be joining online. But let me bring up to stage Mr. Godwin Tom Sunday for a discussion. I thought somebody was going to clap until he gets to the stage. Please put your hands together for Mr. Godson Itogokban, an exhibiting artist, as he joins the panel. And I'm trying to see how I can get another seat because I need Dini Lago on this panel. But from wherever she is, from where she is right now, she's on this panel until I get a seat up here so she can join this panel. Please put your hands together as I welcome Dini Lago. Please stand and take a bow. So while I make preparations for a seat for Dini, please let me hand over this microphone to Queeneth to do justice to this discourse. Put your hands together for her.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, beautiful people. Good afternoon, my senior contemporary artists. I met some of you yesterday, and I'm so honored to be part of this panel. Wow. So, taken by the theme and the objective of this exhibition and this festival, in essence, Ibom Art, International Arts and Book Festival. On this session, we're going to be talking about culture and art, representation of self. Having my seniors in the art, I would call them my seniors because apparently I'm the youngest person here. And I'm so honored to have you all. Sir Burns Effium, if I'm not wrong. From the topic, representation of selves, how would you describe or define your art? What comes to your mind first? How do you explain it?
I think when it comes to art of representing by painting or by writing, it has a lot to do with timelines. I mean, if you were in a situation like there's a kid during the Second World War that was locked up because of the blast of aeroplanes and bombing, and this kid ended up talking like chicken, like it was in the barn, like where you had the poultry. So it's like after a while he was communicating. So what I'd say that when you talk about self, I've had many selves. I'm a migrant, so for a bit I've been painting things that are relative to migrations. I don't know why, so the major body of my work recently is called Portraits of Lampedusa. So Lampedusa is no way near Nigeria, but when I look at my country and I go to places like Benin, when I was at the lobby, I noticed a lot of people are from the Benin area, Isha, Esha, and all that, so but me too, I run a gallery that has to do a lot with Benin, because the Oba of Ranwe that was banished during the punitive measure was actually staying with my family, so we kept him like a king. So I have a relationship with Benin, and so when the Who centenary, which was the centenary of the memory of the amalgamation of Nigeria, 1914, which was actually when Obranwe died, and two of his sons were heading to Calabar to see him secretly. So the one that went back happened to be Akenzwa, who, in respect of the hospitality of my people, now gave 2 altar pieces to the gallery that I run. So these altar pieces have a lot of influence on me as altar pieces, if you know what altar pieces are in Benin. But that was not my outlook when I started painting migrations. And the question is, why is it mostly people from Edo State who migrate to Europe through the desert? Flying to Europe on British Airways with a visa is different from taking a lorry from Edo State to Dahomey, Ouagadougou, Tamraset, Libya. Then you will almost be swimming across the water to a place in Italy called Lampedusa. So that's my relationship with Lampedusa. And it wasn't so much about Lampedusa. It was the psychology of what makes someone decide to sell your barbing salon, then carry all the proceeds and dine with the wild to go to a certain country. I wasn't like disproving it, but I'm asking personal questions. But I didn't start painting portraits of Lampedusa in Edo State or the gallery that I run in Calabar. I started painting portraits of Lampedusa in Arizona, in a place called Scottsdale. And when I was going to Arizona to paint, I told my friends, they said I shouldn't go there, that there's racism and all that. So I still went there. Maybe I didn't want to paint. Maybe I just went there for escapism. But when I started painting, I was painting so much things that had to do with the colors of water, which is Lampedusa in Arizona. But then someone reminded me that the borders of Arizona and Texas and all that are facing a lot of migrations from Mexico. I was taken aback. So the person that asked me the question, she's not listening to me. Okay. So I'm telling you because I'm talking a lot. I always look forward to have a chat with you since you are in the book world. And the trick was that I'm an artist who paints. Meanwhile, I'm part of you. So I'm so comfortable with this because I'm coming from book. So without serious cerebral attitude, which comes from books, you don't have a great painter. Some of the greatest painters could have been anything. They could have been any other thing. They could have been a general in the army. They could have been chief surgeon and all that. So what I actually gathered from most of artists, like you look at me, like a big artist. I know artists who are not, I'm not even older than them, but they're big. So I noticed their references were always books. I'm always about books, 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 books. In other words, I'm going to say to you now, maybe you write books, but also read. Everything about art would be reading. So maybe I'm answering the questions somehow because I read everything. So my mentality about self was influenced by what I read. Because no matter what I read, my idea of art is based on Chinua Achebe's saying that for you to know how much rain has beaten you, then you should be able to decide the size of towel to wipe your body. So, in other words, I know where I'm coming from. I speak my language, I write my language. Even I had to pretend to write about my social context. I'll be like a witch because people think people from Calabar are witches. So I know so much about my tradition that I could do things that you think I'm a witch. But I wouldn't think so, because in art you have explanations to a lot of things. I would think I was being surreal in the name of paranormal, you know. So painting or representing art from my point of view was based on the situation, location, my thinking. Although my location and my thinking would be aloof at certain times, because I would sit here and I'd be imagining other things somewhere else. So it's a difficult question to answer, but most artists, if I want to join the bandwagon, would tell you their painting identity. But my identity sometimes does not come from my work, because when I started painting, I didn't paint for any identity. I painted things that would look good behind a sofa, because I wasn't going to sell my art for anything. So I made money from making interior, making chairs. So I look at the colors that work in my scheme of making a house. But that's not to say that today I don't have works that I can't even sell, because I'm so deep into them that I don't even believe my audience will understand what I'm doing. So sometimes I look at it like, this work, what am I doing here? Sell it at a price and just like get profits as if you're selling a commodity. When I look at it again, I just shut it and close the book and make sure that there was no dust about it. So I'm talking about timelines. So it was dependable at the time and the situation that I've been making a piece.
Thank you very much. That was rather insightful. And moving over to Anaken Udofia from the US. Welcome. Okay, I have a similar question for
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
Relating to your current location, how has your art been able to be style based on what kind of art do you make, and does it like represent you, or do you go on the new normal in terms of modern art, or are you representing your person?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much for that question. And hello to everyone. So, you're asking, how does the art represent me? Personally, I think the fact that, so I've been doing, I started here I got here in 99, somewhere around 99. And so from 2000 to 2003 to somewhere around 2015, I was working with a lot of hip hop publications here in the US. And part of the representation is that name, Aniekan. Now I'm known for, I live in Washington, D.C. now, so I've done a lot of murals, large-scale murals here in the city. And the one thing that sometimes I'll get phone calls or emails, and people will reach out to ask me if I'm Nigerian because they saw the name Aniekan on the piece. And that's one of the ways that, in terms of me being me and doing me, and also representing for Nigeria and where my background as an Akwa Ibom is just when people see that name and also what it means, you know. So the background, however, when I was growing up in Nigeria, I was really heavily into hip hop in my teens. So a lot of the stuff I drew was kind of like hip hop based, which is why I was able to acquire a career here when I moved down here to the United States. A lot of the work that I did in Nigeria, I did a lot of drawings for um, barbing salons, which was a thing back then, early 90s, especially at the time where the clipper was introduced. So I used that avenue to kind of put my name out there. And then that's the same thing that happened when I moved down here to the United States. I kind of used the same hustle and just went. I've done a lot of album covers. I've done a lot of book covers as well, which is my main course. But the mural stuff started. I started transitioning over to murals in the, I want to say somewhere around 2008. And so by 2013, there was the name started blowing up here in Washington D.C., which is the capital. And I've done over, I want to say about 36 or 37 murals here in DC, both indoor and outdoor. The name Aniakan has become a household name here in DC. And I usually take that opportunity to, because usually people will say, when they ask me where I'm from and I say I'm from Nigeria, they'll say, oh, are you Igbo or Yoruba, which is what a lot of people here are familiar with. They're only familiar with those two tribes. Now, I'm all for Nigeria, but I'm also all for where I came from, which is where you guys are. I grew up in Uyo. I'm an Akwa Ibomite. My parents are from both Latinan and Ibom. So I usually use that opportunity to educate people on, these other parts of Nigeria that are less talked about, like, say, Akwa Ibom. So when people hear that, they say, oh, are you Igbo or Yoruba? And I say, I'm the Ibibio. And that opens up a whole new portal for them to explore Nigeria with. And being that I'm using, because of that name also, you know, I can establish both my identity, but also the identity of my background. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really amazing. Which even brings us back to the representation culture here, representing the minority. I have also been in that situation where people ask me where I come from, and the only places they have heard of is either Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and when I say Ibibio, even within the country, even among Nigerians, they seem to look lost, like they've never heard the tribe Ibibio. I wonder what happened at their primary school education level. It's really surprising. Well, taking our minds back to the popular African art settings and the culture of art in our environment in Nigeria, precisely from the two questions I've asked the exhibiting artists about the bronze, about their works and how it represents them as individuals. It takes our minds back to, let's say, the Edo people. Their bronze works are and were their identity. Once you see bronze, you know it's Edo. Or taking it to other parts of Africa, the cave works by Kenyans or the hieroglyphics by the Egyptians. It's something that is really, really, really interesting. Every artist has his or her own representation. I, as an exhibiting artist, I have a lot of history and story to my works. One of them, A Thousand Thoughts, was a painting I did after I came out of severe depression. It wasn't even funny. For someone to have survived from childhood into teenagehood, then to adulthood of different stages of depression, then coming out to paint something that represented her pain and her progress and her motive to getting out of it. If I tell people some snippets of my story, it seems amazing, like you really went through all that. You don't look like it. Just up until mid last year, I finally opened up to my parents and we spoke, and it was really a session to behold. But notwithstanding, we have more artists in the house. We are going to share their experiences and how their art reflects them or their environment, how it has been representing them as a whole, and how they've been able to express themselves and the challenges they have faced in producing their artwork. Next up is Tom Sunday, right? Good.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Actually, as a young artist, I've been exhibiting quite numerous parts of this country, and I discovered that art itself has its way of relating and communicating to people. I not just produce painting because I want to make the walls of people look beautiful. I try to produce painting because I tell stories with it, and my art specifically relates to society and it provides solutions to some of our issues around our community. I would say that my painting of different titles, like um, I try to relate my art with my community, which I'm from Akwa Ibom State here, and I always title them like Ekaino, Ekankoyo, and more of like our indigenous name. And these paintings most times tell stories of how our mothers and our sisters try so hard to put food on the table for the family. And you know, as a child, I try to understand how parents suffer or struggle to make ends meet. And I've traveled to different parts of Nigeria, and I understand that in Nigeria as a whole, we have to understand that painting is not just for painting's sake. And I try to use my art to tell stories, and I try to use my art to also provide solutions to social issues. Like some years back, I produced a painting titled "The Bride." The title is quite interesting, but by the time you get to know about the story of the bride, you might be like, it's a reality that happened within our society, especially in the north. Um, the story does goes like it's a reality story about a 14 years old girl that the parents kind of pushed out for marriage, and she barely know nothing about marriage, not to talk about taking care of herself. And also, this young lady now, without her knowing how to even take care of herself, like maybe wash her clothes or even probably provide food for herself, because of poverty, the parent now pushed her out for marriage. And the man in question is there about 45 years. And this is a reality story, and I believe in one part of our country or our community, these things happen. So I don't just paint to like say, oh, this painting is beautiful or this painting is nice. No, I paint to tell stories. And I don't care whether you buy it or not. But what I do is this. I put up this painting for people to like maybe learn from it, and also for posterity purpose, for historical documentaries. You understand? And there's also several paintings of mine. Like there's one other painting I titled my yesterday. My yesterday is quite interesting, and I try to bring it up here for people to see. Every everybody has that kind of part in his life that probably you want to learn new things, you want to try something new. Either your big brother or your big sister is there to help you, or you want to like push to great minds, and these things happen, whether we like it or not, whether conscious or unconsciously, it happens to everybody. And I try to see how people can relate to some of these stories, not just to enjoyed it on our walls. I have a lot of painting that tells about how our society operates, both even in um, um, the history of Nigerian bomb blasts. There's a painting I tied to the history of Nigerian bomb blasts. You imagine how can painting relate to those things? Because as my senior colleague in the industry rightly say, art is not just for painting alone. It's not just for you to just produce something. The literature, the the music, the poet, and all these things are art. And in one way or the other, we use it to tell stories. And I use my own art. I'm a painter. I use it to tell stories, and I use it to provide solutions to social issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really amazing. Okay, over to the next senior man and the next painter in the house. I want to know how you incorporate the African elements in your art and what they represent. How do you use them? Because definitely everything that an artist puts on a canvas, or let me say on a surface in general, has a meaning. How do you do this?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Godson Etokakbad. I live in Port Harcourt. That's by way of introduction. I'm a painter. I'm also a writer. I published my first novel also, Angala. It's about the South-South struggle, what we call the militancy era. I'm also a poet. I have done all of these. And of all three, I can't say which one gives me the most joy, but I enjoy doing them. Now, if art is a conscious effort by an individual, okay, to use creative imagination to create something that's beautiful for people to look at, then you will understand that as an artist, you have to use your imagination. And when we talk about aesthetics, we're talking about something that's beautiful. So out of your imagination, you have to create a work that's seen by people and appreciated and is said to be beautiful. The concept of beauty now not necessarily means it has to be beauty the way you know it, classical in looks. A line can be beautiful. A form can be beautiful. But all of these is based on the interpretation of who is seeing it. Beauty is subject to the viewer. So something that's beautiful to you might not be beautiful to me. So art becomes something very personal. So for art to be personal, doesn't start just from the person that is observing the art. It starts from the person that's creating the art. So because if it's personal, it must have identity, right? That identity is you infused in the art. Now, how do you, as an artist, make your art have identity? For your art to have an identity, it has to speak about what you feel, what you think, what beliefs you have. Okay? All of these, even where you are growing up, your upbringing, your parental influence, peer influence, they all come together, okay, to make who you are as an individual. So you see, the development of an artist comes in stages. And each stage reflects an identity of that person. When I started painting, I painted, and people will look at this and say, this is a schoolboy painting, because it has the identity of somebody who is not yet a master. And then you continue working, and then your art moves to another level. a maturity level. It too has a certain identity. The signature you put on your painting also is an identity. But that is what establishes the ownership of that work. Ownership is also established by the thing you put into the art. When art critics look at a work, they can actually trace it and say, because it has this, it has this, it has this, it was done by this. Now, you begin to see that as you work, you want to be known, just like the Benin works were known, the North culture works were known. You want to be known, you want to leave an identity behind that somebody can see at any time and see and say, this work was done by Godson Etok Akpan. So you begin to experiment. I search for a language of self-expression that you look at the work, my work at any point in time and say, this is Godson's work. It took time. It took time. I would say it didn't come until last year, just last year. How did it come? I just slept. I have a gift of dream also. And in that dream, so the artist, this takes me to another fundamental principle. The artist is spiritual. I was told, from now on, your hands are blessed. And I woke up. When those revelations come, I know the type that I'm being spoken to directly. So I took it. I said, okay, let's see. Immediately, 3 days later, an idea came to me. An idea just came to me. There is a guy, a friend of mine, I like, he's very popular, our Victor Ekuk. I like his work. He paints with the NCVD symbol. All his works, taking the form, symbols from CVD to another level of art. I used to admire that. But I said to myself, yeah, this is something from my place. CVD is a sacred symbol. It's not something you know about, except you are initiated into a particular cult that uses that language, right? I met a young man, very interesting young man today. He told me, when we started talking about, he looked at my work, he said, this work is telling me something. It's telling me something. I said, what is it telling you? It says, there is something, my father is a title chief, and I did projects on certain thing in CBD. I said, yes, I've infused in CBD forms into my work. Now, artists are influenced either by the society or by their peers or by those who are gone ahead of them to master the craft. I would say that the works of Victor Ekuk influenced me to a great degree. So I started thinking, and I said, okay, since it's my, would I say we come from the same area, and I like what he's doing, how can I use it in my own work without seeming to copy Ekuk? So I had to start creating my own identity. Ekuk's works are more of symbolism. I decided to have forms that you can actually relate with using the abstract expressionist approach. Okay? Then I use lines. Remember, every art starts basically with lines. And if you look at NCVD forms, it's composed of lines. Okay? So there is a play on your, if you look at your canvas as a space and you make a composition, your composition starts with line. Okay? When you put in all the other elements of art, you have what you call a work of art that's completed. So my artwork reflects the current work. So I when I got that revelation, all the paintings that I'd done between 2000 and 2018 to 2022, I went back to them. I changed all my works. I reviewed all my works. So if you go to my painting, you will see some of them signed 2020 to 2022 or thereabout. And that's to accommodate, to show you that there was a time that I did the job and stopped. And this is, in literature, you have it as a second edition or third edition. So I progressed the edition. So when Professor, what's his name again? The famous art historian in Port Harcourt, Professor, I'll remember his name. I invited him over to my gallery and he looked at my works. I said, Prof, this is the way I'm going now. He looked at them and said, yes, you have found it. This is what we call Eureka. You have found it. He looked at the rest of the works, the pre-Nsibidi works, and then Nsibidi, post-Nsibidi work. And he said, review all your works. I said, Prof, already I'm on it. But the material I'm using to review these works, I've run out of them and it's no more available in the market. So, as artists, you have to consciously and always try to up your craft. You have to. And I just said to myself, I'm going to, in the next 10 years, it might change. Yes, but for now, that's what I'm going to be concentrating on. And my friend, what's your name again? Sorry? Courage. Because Nsibidi is, I'm not an initiate. And to find materials on it, most things that you see, literature on it is very scanty. Okay, it's very scanty. And I met Courage today. If I've not gained anything from my coming here, I've gained something because Courage did his project on CBD. And he has promised to give me material. So I believe that my work between now and the next 5 years is going to be a different thing. Thank you.
Please put a round of applause for everyone that has said some. This is amazing. And Courage, please. I also want a, Okay. There is another amazing artist, Judson Artisi. Please come up on stage. Please, a round of applause for him. Okay, due to inavailability of seats, we are going to be talking to Judson from there, from the audience anyway. So the next person we are going to be talking to is Dini Lago. I don't want to mess up your beautiful name.
Hello, everybody. Actually, my name is Dinilago Zobari. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be among the people that are sitting as professionals here on this stage. Actually, life of an artist have not been easy due to my brought up. And I make my works, my ceramics works, trying to portray females, talking about the sexual part, the figuring, and so on and so forth. When we talk about, when we look at a young girl or look at a woman, you see some fishes that are there, recreational fishes that are there. You will see some things that you need to talk about so that you stop inequalities, like people looking down on women, people looking down on our female girls, trying to abuse them. You talk about it. Actually, that's what I do with my work. The works that I brought here, they are actually the works that I worked on when I was in the university. So they are actually talking about my university idea, my mode of thinking when I was in the university. Because what I discovered is that art is based on your mood. If you're in a good mood, you depict your art in that mood. If you're in a sad mood, you depict your art in that mood. So whatever mood you are, that is how your art going to represent. So during my university days, I became a partner with Channel Missions, where we went for 40 days conference, and I was really touched. During the children evangelical fellowship. So because of that, I now try to put my art based on families. And you can see where just that the artwork over there outside, they are not really titled. But one of the work is, I titled it Family Seed, which talk about a family well represented, talking about love that has to be in the family, talking about the role of a mother, the role of the father, and so on and so forth, and the role of a child. Just talking about how I felt in my family. You know, as I've earlier said, your mood at a particular time has to be the representation of your art. And I've been representing my art towards my mood and also towards nature, the things that I see around me, the things that I hear people say. That's why when this exhibition comes up and I look at the theme, I was really pushed to go for it, because I'm the kind of person that I really want my audience, I really want people around me to know that this girl is capable, this girl is who she is, not to be biased. Because I discovered that as a female artist, it's not easy, because they will just look at you. Were you not supposed to be in the kitchen cooking? Were you not supposed to be this place or that? Yeah, I'm supposed to be there, but being in the kitchen cooking doesn't make me not to want to practice art. I can be in the kitchen, and in the mode of being in the kitchen, I'll bring up an artwork. So by then, I try to represent my art based on who the female is, their roles, and whatever they do. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've really done well. So, in basic description, she has explained how art and being a woman almost do not go together in the African context, because I have suffered the same thing, and I would say you are my colleague in that. However, I remember Sarah talking about being an African and or an African child, so to say, and telling your parents you want to study art. Who among you have ever tried that before? Telling your parents you want to study art, what did they say? It sounded ridiculous to them, right? Because the major occupation of the African family is either you be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a pilot, something more reasonable, so to say, right? That's normal. But interestingly, I come from a family where they are very supportive. People thought my father was crazy when he actually allowed me to go into the arts full time. And I would say you are not alone in this. Thank you so much for that. Okay, next up we are going to be having Judson. He's representing
Style and Fashion. And I'm here to represent my very senior colleague. He also trained me in the arts. His name is Chris Isaiah. His works are out there for exhibition. So I'll start with talking about Chris. He's an artist. He's a visual artist. He's a photographer too. And he has this mindset of the Afrofuturistic theme, where you have to see the strength in Africa. Because when you get into this industry of photography, fashion, art, and all of that, we have always been defined by the theme or the dictates or the ideas of the white foreigners. So now, in this line where we are pushing ourselves as Africans and as blacks and all of that, Chris is someone I know that is in the forefront of that line. And with his art, where he uses the elements of light and color and the human form especially to bring out this representation as a photographer now, it makes more sense when you see, whenever we hear artists, most of the times we think of painters, sculptors, guys that draw. But when you come to see someone that actually does photography and it is expressed and perceived as pure art, we tend to see this level of perfection, and I think that's where he tends to. So as a visual artist, he uses all these elements to bring this to reality. And this is what has defined him. And me as a person that I've worked under him, I've learned from him, I've understood from him, I've been on the set a couple of times, we work in the studio together. I have learned that it is not always about where he is at that point that he does his art or he creates the art. It's about the end feeling, the end emotion, the end idea you get when you see something, when you see the art at the end, that final product, that's what drives him. So when he has all those ideas, he's a very quiet person, he's calm, he's quite antisocial, not so busy with the activities of youthful exuberance and all of that. But when it comes to the creating aspect, and I think this is what he tries to sell, and this is what I also try to sell. So that defines his identity. That form of art defines his identity, and it also defines the art. I know art can be subjective. Art can mean something to you. It can mean something different to you. It can mean something different to you. But despite that difference, it's all related to a core. And Chris is someone that I know that he establishes that core very well. So from whatever angle you tend to look at it, you get to derive a meaning from your own perspective that is still related to his idea. I don't know if you understand me. So the pieces that he brought here to exhibit, they are from two of his collections, the clay and the potter, and the other one he tagged Stellaris. The clay and the potter was more of a collection that was to give us the idea of we as humans, we originate from a creator, and despite the fact that we originate from a creator, we are placed on pedestals, and now these pedestals, they enhance our beauty, they enhance our worth, and despite the fact that as humans we tend to be flawless, we tend to be not perfect in a way, we are still worthy and meaningful, and all of these, they are just so, like, let me say, dynamic and well expressed in art pieces. They were actually amazing photographs. When I saw the pictures myself, because I was there when I was editing them, some of them, I was like, how did you think of these things? How did you come to conceive all of these things? And it made a lot of sense to me that someone can actually stay from this way and then have these conceptions and not just have them, bringing them to reality. And now, the whole process of bringing them to reality, when you're shooting, when you're trying to set your light, when you're trying to pose your model, the end goal runs through your mind. And I think as an artist too, I'm also speaking for myself, that whole process of creating can also be very therapeutical, because there's sometimes when you just have that perfect shot, when you have that perfect painting, there's just this calmness, there's this peace. And I think that's like the peak of art. That's like the, let's say, the orgasmic feeling where you're like, yeah, I did this shit, and then you're like, oh wow. Then you pause for a while and then you admire the whole art. And I think that is really intentional. And the other part, the other collection, which is Stellaris, has to do more of like the astral environment, space and all of that, lights and stars and all of that, being represented, how we might see ourselves as humans, with our human form in this space, in the heavens, in the celestial space and all of that. And these pieces all brought together, make me see and make me understand that art is identical, like it's relating to the identity, and it's a beautiful part of life that we can never run away from. And I'm really happy to be here. As a person, I'm really honored to have to share this podium with very great intellectuals, and also to represent Chris Isaiah. He's unavoidably absent here, and he also sends his warm greetings to everyone. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and we all have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chris has been ably represented by Jude. And I would like to know if anyone has any questions in the audience. We have one. Any other person? Any other question for either of the artists? Okay. Lawrence.
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is about the representation of self in art. Because as an artist, sometimes you are inspired by what you see, by the things around you. Like I remember when I was talking to Mr. Burns, he was telling me sometimes he likes to look through the window and it inspires him. So coming from a minority region, like the Niger Delta, like Nigeria, like Judson, coming from Eastern Obolo, sometimes creating pictures out of what you see around, does it not create stereotypes? Does it not create stereotypes and make people want to look at, your origin as having that low class? So I want to ask, maybe Mr. Nyekan, in US can help us with this. Like now that you are in US, trying to create art from Africa, trying to create art from this region where people will now be looking at, each time they look at Akwa Ibom or each time they look at Nsedetai, they feel that, the Nsedetai people behave this way, since this is what you write about them. That doesn't mean that even though there are people in Eastern Obolo who do fishermen, there are other people doing greatly well. There are people who are professors, there are those who are medical doctors, but you trying to do art, as depicting the things you see around him, does it not create stereotypes, and does it not make people always want to look at you in the derogative? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. That's a really good question. So I think earlier the thing is that first of all, um, even though in our current time right now, a lot of people don't know what artists do, and that stereotype has been promoted throughout the existence of art. There are some artists who, hence the quote unquote starving artist. So a lot of people think that artists don't need money, they don't need to get paid. And so some people don't make the separation between someone who's a hobbyist, like there's some people who knit and some people who make crafts like baskets and things like that. And then there's some people who take it more professional, meaning it's they're applying their um, genres of expertise do. But when it comes to art, people always see it like, oh well, you're just doing what you love, So and it's the responsibility of the artist to make sure to explain to people like, no, these ideas that are coming out of my head are one, yeah, it's fun and it's creative, but that's the exact reason why this should be taken seriously. They are and also pointing people in the direction of how many careers exist within the art genre alone. Everything that is around us, the architecture, that room we're sitting in, we go outside, the way the streets are arranged, that was done by architects. Those architects are artists, and so that's one section. Now, the other part is personally, me being here in America again, what I've noticed here live is I'm noticing how right now in America people are speaking pidgin because of Afrobeat music. Their random Americans know Alpha, they know, oh boy, they know Omo, all those. They picked it up from the music. And those musicians were able to be themselves, present themselves, and have people share within what they're producing. So I use that same formula. So people will come to, a lot of times when people, especially from the United States, when they visit Nigeria, they pick and choose certain things that they want to be interested in. And then when they come back here, they elaborate on it based on that little experience. So me having my foot on both sides, I said, okay, I'll do the same thing. So I use hip hop culture to show that this this culture that you guys have is what inspired that Afrobeat that you love. So like even these pieces behind me, everybody knows who Bruce Lee is, but this is my rendition of that inspiration of Bruce Lee. And again, me being able to, I can paint Igbo masquerade, Tinkoriko, and all that stuff, but it doesn't give people a clear view of my broadened sense of the world. So me painting hip hop stuff made them curious about how do you guys know about hip hop in Nigeria? And I said, wait, you'll see. And then now, currently, the fact that Afro Beats was able to blend the Afro beat that Fela used to do and blend it with hip hop and create a whole new genre of music that is celebrated worldwide is the same reason why I paint and draw things that I'm inspired by that is worldwide inspired, but my core remains in Nigeria and Akwa Ibom. So I never ever deny my background where I'm from. But I also use that opportunity to show them like we're also this creative where we can take things from around the world and make it popular. So for instance, again, like I said before, when you come to DC and you look around the city and you mention murals, the number one name is Anyekan. Now, A funny thing is some people will see the name and they'll say Anakin, Anakin, and so on. And so I always make it very clear to let them know that it's pronounced Aniakan and it's a dialect. Language is power. American language is the propaganda they use in the music and their movies and stuff like that. But when it comes to artists and art, our propaganda is our expression, and the absence of that expression is depression, which is denied expression. So the importance of you do like everything. I agree with everything every artist on this panel is saying. Like, and you can see like it's all different points of views, but these different points of views is then what we infuse the public with to let not only ourselves be known, but also let our own backgrounds be known as well. So that is to me the formula in terms of being able to represent yourself without losing yourself. You know, so in summary, I really think it's very important to the education of the public on what they are seeing in a way they can understand, and also melding art versus commerce together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Does any other person have any question? Okay, we have one more question.
Inclusion, exclusion, and then finally on the Mr. Aniakan's observation about art and commerce. You can see the eclecticity here, the hybridal side of it, or when you look at Mr. Yep, okay, Afghan's observation earlier about him trying to cross boundaries from maybe poetry to painting to the writer. Okay. And so you can see the mixture of all of them. It's kind of interesting to see how everyone is trying to, I hate the word, but I gotta use it, hustling between the lines, between the artificial demarcations to bring back to Aniakan's conclusion that is all money. Okay? If it's all money that makes you to move from poetry to painting to writing to crossing boundaries now, talking about inclusion and exclusion. So are you not excluding one genre in the effort to expand your horizons to include? Because, well, I hate to sound intellectual here. When you exclude, you include. And when you include, you exclude. So by talking about minority, which I hate the word, please, I do hate the word. I don't use it. When you talk about minority, you're excluding majority. When majority talks about minority, they're excluding minority. So in excluding, trying to be Yoruba, you're excluding the non-Yorubas. By trying to be the non-Yoruba, you're excluding the Yorubas. So where do we reconcile all of these things about exclusions and inclusions and expanding boundaries, like Mr. Burns earlier alluded to, in our efforts to expand, include, and collaborate? And how do you do all of those compromising without selling yourself out?
Well, sir, first of all, I think I want to correct the impression that when you cross from one genre to the other, it's for commercial purpose, making money. I doubt it very much, because first of all, for you to be able to do that, it means you are multi-talented. Writing is a gift. It comes as a gift. Painting is a gift that comes to people. A gifted painter will not be the same as somebody that's struggling to be a painter. Now, when you talk about inclusion, I would rather think that the fact that you're doing this and this and this is inclusive, because the means of expressing ideas are different. In painting, you have a canvas. In writing, it's either your computer or a piece of paper, right? The materials available for you as a painter, your subject matter as a painter, your ability to execute your vision as a painter is all inclusive. You come to writing, your ability to put words together, your ability to communicate your ideas, to use the right words, to convey the emotion you feel at any point in time, relating either to a culture or to an idea is inclusive. Now, you cannot be 100% inclusive. Why? As a painter, you have to be selective of your theme. Okay? So, that's where we can now talk about being exclusive. Okay? Because in an attempt to build an identity, I can say I want to do landscapes only, nature study. I want to do portraitures only, or I want to focus on culture. Okay? This is what makes or enable people to look at your work and say, this is this person. And because you have been able to do that, it becomes an identity. And the ability for you to transit from one painting to the other, building this signature across your work, is inclusive. Because if you are able to do something today that's this way, and then tomorrow you're painting something that's very different from what you painted before, then you are being exclusive. So you must have a theme. And that's why artists, when a critic comes to look at your work, or when people who collectors for instance, if they come today, from my experience, and they see today you're dabbling with realism, tomorrow you're being an expressive painter, they look at you as unserious, because there is no trend in your work. They cannot actually map out your work and say, this is a period or the transition of growth for this particular person. From this period to this period, he was like this. From this period to this, all of this is. When you look at from the start of the artist to where it is, you can say that it is inclusive. So I don't agree that by doing this or that you're excluding certain things. I may decide to paint, for instance, I look at, you talk about minority. Most paintings have been about women. Women are painted a lot, okay? More than men. If you look at great paintings of the world, they've been about the female form. And you see most artists gravitating towards, especially those who paint forms, gravitating in that direction, towards that direction, okay? If you see that a lot, it means that men are being excluded also in paintings, okay? And as an artist, you may decide to say, okay, I want to be inclusive by bringing men as forms into my paintings. And then you begin to study the male form. I had an experience. I was at the Bruce Onobrokaya Foundation, I think 2018, the Hamatan workshop in 2018. And every evening we'll sit like this, we'll have symposium, we'll brainstorm, talk, and somebody made a presentation and I said, what's interesting about the male form? For me, I don't find the male form interesting in any way. And I was shocked. The woman looked at me, I said, I find it interesting. The woman, she looked at me, I said, I find it interesting. So, what am I trying to say? Whatever subject an artist picks to work on, first, is based on his, as she said, emotion comes a lot to play with it. His interests has a lot to do with it. So, you cannot be so inclusive that you dabble into every subject matter. You cannot be that. You must decide where you want to go, and that's what makes those you call a master in art. That's what differentiates them from the person that just graduated from school. I've been painting since 2008. I am 59 now, so I've been painting for a long time. And if you look at my works, when I started painting and my works now, you will see the difference. So, and that's because I learned to take out what in communication you call it noise. Take out the noise and focus on what is important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to everyone on this panel for your insightful words of wisdom. Thank you for everything, for impacting this kind of knowledge to the next generation and to upcoming artists in the field. We really appreciate it. And we also want to thank the convener and Miss Kate. Thank you so much. Thank you to Aneka Nudofia from US. Thank you so much for being part of this. You've really, really made our day. Thank you to Lawrence and everyone sitting in the audience. Thank you for your patience and listening. Thank you so much. Please put a round of applause for yourself.
All right, so that will be all. That will be all for that session. Yeah, we can go now. In a moment from now, we want to go for the art exhibition. But before we go for art exhibition, there was a contest. There was a slam, a poetry slam that was in the building, and the major winners had emerged. Winners had emerged. So we would like to present the prizes to the winners. But I'd like our keynote address speaker to be on ground so he can present the award and the prizes to the winners of the poetry. So please. All right, so I'd like to call on all the poetry contestants. I'd like to call on the poetry contestants to please come in. And to liven up the building a little bit, I would like to bring on stage for a performance, for a spoken word performance before we announce the winners. A super talented spoken word artist that has traversed the country and has made waves for himself in the field of spoken word literature. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a clap of welcome, help me welcome to the stage Daddy Naija.
The title of this poem is Every Raindrop Dies a Violent Death. Today, I write as a living victim of 1,000 deaths. I bring greetings from this pitch black pit of failed romance where all the dead I love yous are buried. My very breath reeks of pestilence, and the stale stench of death clings onto me like magnets to a bar in a candy factory. My soul has never tasted light in a million years. I've had to make do with simulations. Situations that present themselves as a pure chance at true exhilaration, but these false lights can seem to see the light of day. They fade with the night, and like a 90-year-old penis that was held erect in the night by an unhealthy dosage of Viagra, they fail to rise with the dawning sun. But since the affinity for self-loathing is ingrained in my consciousness, I have perfected the act of running after these pseudo-lights like a desperate adrenaline junkie chasing after the next catastrophic high. Constantly, stubbornly chasing pain like a wide receiver running to score yet another touchdown. And I always score, but I'm designed to score against myself. I'm collecting these scars as trophy, but there's nothing shiny about loss. I guess all that glitters are really gold in the end. Perhaps I learned out the hard way. Or did I? Because you are going to come calling. I will hear poetry in every syllable. I will lean into every tentative touch that always seemed to hold a word of promise. I'll start to believe again. Like a weather balloon full of helium, I'll float towards the sun. This climax is orgasmic. If I have known true freedom, this has got to be it. So I surrender my worries into your loving arms and forget for a simple, perfect moment that I'm afraid of heights. I love you. I trust you. I love you. I trust you. But then I let you beam me up to the heavens and pull the rays from under me. And here comes the crashing. Like bitcoins, I'm plummeting from the highest of height. A free fall from freedom, frantically flailing from firmamental fun. Fate fails as fun fades, and my face is frigidly frozen as fear folds up my feet. And frankly, I find it fitting. Fitting because I deserve this. I deserve this for never learning from my past million lives, my past million deaths. Yes, serves me right, for I have lost count of how many oceans I've cried in a million failed experiments to find happiness in a system that was rigged against me. The only thing I've learned so far is that I will never learn, knowing that I'm stuck in a vicious cycle of fly, crash, burn, rise from the ashes and crash once again, but never lifting a finger to get myself unstuck. All that I've learned right now is that I will never learn. So if I'm not naive about how naive I am, then what does that make me? Cursed with the knowledge of not knowing. Like every unlucky raindrop, I've died 1,000 violent deaths. And as long as this water cycle keeps on going, I'm fated to die this death for all eternity. Evaporation, flap, flap, I'll fly again on the wings of love, eagling around in white wool, for the clouds remember my name. Condensation, I will hear the sudden stop of the gust of the rush of air in my ears, and I will float in this weightlessness for just a little while longer. Precipitation, I'm fated to fall through forever, condemned to the same masochistic recycling of the same old pain. I hear the universe chuckling and bowing. Pleasure is all mine. Of course it is. Let's drink to that. So here's to fated unlimited supply of violent deaths. And here's to hoping to be one of the lucky raindrops and get to fall into the oceans and seas from time to time. For I suppose it's better to die in the hands of family than on these cold, ruthlessly lonely highways. Was that hope? My bad. Luck has a restraining order against me. I hope I don't get punished for overstepping my bounds. So today I write as a living victim of a million deaths. These calloused hands just want to pen down a short tale of blood, deafening silences and desolate deaths. Perhaps I should sign this letter before the next death is upon me, for I feel the aura of a lover yonder. Yours hopelessly, Miguel.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Daddy Niger. Daddy Niger is a superstar poet. He just came back from Lagos. He's a finalist of the La Casera Spoken Wars. Just concluded poetry competition. And we are really, really grateful that you graced this event, Daddy Niger. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us till the very end. We have come to the end of the slam part of this event, but then, of course, immediately after this, we will be stepping out for an art exhibition. Please, we're all lovers of art, and I expect that we commit active participation in the art exhibition. Art is beautiful, art is life, art is humanity, as I would always say. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time we have been waiting for. This is the moment we will know who's going home with 100,000, who's going home with the 50,000, who's going home with 30,000, and who will be favored by the viewers, because we also have a viewer's choice. So, yeah, so I have the names of those who made it to the top 3. But then, please, Slammers, mount the stage. Please, let's put our hands together for them. Slammers, mount the stage. Please, hope we have the photographers around, because we're going to be needing them. Please, we need all the slammers on stage. We had 4 finalists. Please, let's save time. Let's save time. Let's have all the slammers on stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Big Brother. Please, slammer number 4, may you report to the diary room. Step forward, please. number 3, please step forward. Ladies and gentlemen, with an average of 25.5, slammer number 1 is our second runner-up. Please, let's put our hands together. Please, come forward, please. With an average of 26.3, we have slammer number 3 as first runner-up. And the winner of this contest, the winner of the Skybirds Poetry Slam 2022 is no other than, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Splendor Slammer number 4. We have a winner with an average of 28.4. Splendor is going home with 100,000 naira. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this slam. So please, we would have a photograph with the president of Society of Nigerian Artists, Mr. Achibong Basi. Thank you so much, sir. So the vice president, Society of Nigerian Artists. Sorry about that, sir. So please, is the paparazzi ready? Let's have a photograph with.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the art exhibition. Okay, I'd like to call on everyone, so please come down for us to go for the art exhibition. When we return, a book reading with Idede Osayande will be happening here for about 30 minutes. We want to listen to Warren Odekari last. Please, shall we all march out to the gallery for the art exhibition? While the music is going on, the art exhibition, the gallery is open for exhibition. Go there, take pictures, buy all the artworks you can. And when we return, we'll be having a book reading here. We are grateful to Inspire Community Network for putting this up. We are grateful to Awesome Without Borders, our partners. We are grateful to Movie, to Outreach Hotels. We are grateful to Blank Papers. We are grateful to Your Book Club and the Root Hall. If you are interested in arts, the art exhibition is going on right now. You may wish to buy artworks, however many, however you want it.
He works hard to give her all he thinks she wants. Three-car garage, her own credit cards. He pulls in late to wake her up with a kiss goodnight. If he could only read her mind, she'd say, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me, what would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. Now the days have grown to years of feeling all alone. She can't help but wonder what she's doing wrong. Lately she'd try anything to turn his head. Would it make a difference if she'd said, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me, what would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. And the more that he lives, the less that he tries. Show her the love that he holds inside. And the more that she gives, the more that he sees. This is a story of you and me. So I bought you a rose on the way home from work, to open the door to a heart that I hurt. And I hope you notice this look in my eyes, 'cause I'm gonna make things right for the rest of your life. Rest of your life. And I'm gonna hold you tonight. Do all those little things for the rest of your life. He works hard to give her all he thinks she wants. Three-car garage, her own credit cards. He pulls in late to wake her up with a kiss goodnight. If he could only read her mind, she'd say, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me, what would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. Now the days have grown to years of feeling all alone. She can't help but wonder what she's doing wrong. Lately she'd try anything to turn his head. Would it make a difference if she'd say, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me, what would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. And the more that he lives, the less that he tries. Show her the love that he holds inside. And the more that she gives, the more that he sees. This is a story of you and me. So I bought you a rose on the way home from work, to open the door to a heart that I hurt. And I hope you notice this look in my eyes, 'cause I'm gonna make things right for the rest of your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please let's come in. Please, the next section starts now. Please, let's all come in. Hello, everyone. Please, let's come in for the final phase of the. It is food now. Hello, everyone. Please, let's come in.
Hello, everyone. Please come in. Come in. We are about to start. Please. Hello, please. Come in. Come in. Come in. And come inside. Those of you who are outside, please come inside. Please, those of you who are taking pictures, we will do that later. Please come inside. Let's round up. Please. Hello, everyone. Please, can we all come in? Let's round up the program, please. For those of you taking pictures, come in. We'll do that later, please. Please, let's come in. Please, everyone, come in. We are waiting. Come in. Let's round up. Hello. Please, let's go into the hall, please. Hi, hello, everyone. Let's go in. Okay.
All right, please, let's come inside. The next session is just about to start. Thank you very much. Please, let's round up with the art exhibition. Please, and come inside. Thank you.
George Duke. Somebody say, I'm not much, but I'm everything I am because you love me. Please welcome Layla Hathaway.
wonder how. Don't bother asking how it's possible to love someone like you. It's 'cause you're mine. It's 'cause you're you. Nothing you do, nothing you say, nothing could change the love that I promised you when I promised you I'd stay. It's 'cause you're mine, it's 'cause you're you, it's 'cause I'm loved, it's what I do. Yes, I know all there is to ever know, where you've been and where you'll ever go. All your mistakes from yesterdays and the ones you'll make tomorrow. You've been trying so hard to comprehend what kind of love could cover all that sin. Just know there's nothing you could ever do.
1 year on, we seek to move beyond the challenges of last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the very last presentation for the night to wrap up the festival, I'd like to make welcome a very erudite author all the way from Edo State, presenting something very beautiful about minority language and the minority literature, Wari Nodekailas. Help me welcome Idede Isayande.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a long day, so I'll be very fast. And I want to actually commend your patience for staying with us, especially those that were here yesterday. I was actually supposed to read some pages from the book, but for the sake of time, I will still go through it anyway and just give an overview about the book. What we know they carry last. Most people from that heading, they always assume it's a pidgin English book. It's not actually a pidgin English book, but you cannot talk about worry and not mention pidgin English. Am I right? Yes. When we were talking about writing on behalf of the minorities yesterday, we made mention of including their parlance. You must be able to talk like the people, write about the people. And so I read. Information technology had been Okiemote's dream. Information technology had been Okiemote's dream job right from his secondary school days. When the MTN office was newly opened in Warri, back in the day, he would usually go there with his friend Ogari to enjoy the air-conditioned office. He would tell his friend in their usual Warri parlance, if not only the AC safe, man picking suppose work for this kind of place. Like it happened to most Nigerians, his choice to study computer science was changed to physics education when he was offered admission into the Delta State University, Abraka, in Delta State. He, however, did not allow his dream of working with an IT firm to die in him. He attended various seminars and trainings related to programming, coding, and every training program associated with information technology. After graduation, he taught at a private school in Warri while still trying to get on an IT global stage with a particular software he was working on. Forlong was a major IT company in the country with his headquarters at Lekki in Lagos State. Every top-notch IT consultant in the country had either worked there before or was a former intern, and the creme de la creme in the sector nearly always had a history with Forlong Technologies as part of their CVs. So it was not out of place for Kiemotes to scream to the high heavens when he got a mail from Forlong inviting him to their head office in Lagos to discuss his software. The breakthrough was finally here, so it seemed. Worry, 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 he kept shouting as he told everyone that cared to listen in his street how he was about to take over the IT world starting from Lagos. By 5 a.m., Okemote was dressed up and ready to go. It was one of the earliest times he would be fully dressed in the morning, but this was Lagos, and he had to adapt really fast or he would not be able to meet up with his 9 a.m. appointment at Forlong Technologies. Who wouldn't want to get to a place that was capable of changing your life for good an hour before schedule? Being a JJC in Lagos, his host took him to the park and waited as he boarded the Obalende CMS bus. As he sat down in the bus, his friend waved him goodbye and shouted, "Guy, not dull yourself, oh. Keep your things well. Here, not be worried. This is Lagos." With the confidence and pride of a sharp worry guy, he replied, "My guy, forget that thing. Worry not the carry last." The bus was soon filled with passengers and the journey began. Different thoughts flooded his mind as the day was still not bright. How would so many people be up already at this early hour of the day? How was there so much traffic when it was still not up to the 6th hour of the day? There were so many places in his neighborhood back in Warri where you could not come out so early and get to the park in one piece. But all that was what made Lagos Lagos. The early rising and the late night rest were a major characteristics of the city. What was Lagos without traffic? It would just be like Oshogbo, Akure, or any of the southwestern states in the country. Now I skip to chapter 4. It was 5:50 a.m. on a Friday morning. Bola and Okemote were already waiting at Ikeja under bridge. As agreed, Bola's school bus would leave by 6:15 a.m. from a location not far from where they stood, waiting for the man that would take Okemote to Lekki. He had asked Bola to leave since he already had the phone number of the man, but his friend insisted that he wanted to see Okemote enter the car before leaving. He stopped on his shoulder. He tapped Okemote on his shoulder. "That's him over there, the silver Corolla," he said, pointing to the car. He grabbed the box and Okemote followed him. The box was placed in the trunk of the car as Okemote comfortably settled into the front passenger seat. Bola pleaded with the man to help carry him to where he would be joining his school bus as he was already running late. The chance of him catching up with the staff bus if he decided to walk was already very slim. The man obliged and they drove together. One more thing Okemote said. That's not necessary. Let me skip that. Bola looked at him, wanting to protest, but Okemote shrugged with his head bent towards his right shoulder, as if he was saying he started to ask for directions and craftily turned back to see if Bola was still in the car. Unfortunately for him, frightened Bola was out of the car already and scared of what might happen if they drove off and left him there. He was about to quickly cross to the opposite side of the road before his action would ruin the whole. dazzling with every step she took as she descended. Wow, wow, wow. This is smashing. Now you have succeeded in making me jealous for being single tonight. why it seems that worry, Bini, just the old men. Talking to an Urobo man, and the Urobo man hears Bini, hears Isoko.